Good afternoon. It's Monday's edition of the Qurentine Kitchen. Today we're making ginger cookies. These are the perfect cookie to go with a cup of tea. If anybody's drinking tea at this point, on day, March, 967 at this point. It's a very easy recipe. Get your kids to help because it's they get to roll dough in sugar at the end, so it's really fun to do for the kids. So we can just get started. So your ingredient list is 3/4 of a cup of shortening. Now I use Crisco. I'm sure you could probably use Tender Flake, but I like Crisco better. You're gonna need a cup of sugar, 1 egg, 1/4 cup of fancy molasses. You're gonna need 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 cups of flour, and then you're gonna need 2 teaspoons of ginger and a teaspoon of each of cinnamon and cloves. Now the first step is to put all your spices in. I put it in one little container and then sprinkle it into my flour. And then I sort of break that up, whisk it all together. You're literally mixing just dry ingredients together, and then you're creaming all of the wet ingredients together, and then just amalgamating the flour once you've creamed all the wet ingredients. So you do that, and then you're gonna need 2 teaspoons of the baking soda. 1 and 2. And then just sort of mix all that in. Now you can sift it through. I like to whisk it, just a little bit easier, less dishes. All right. So the first things first, you get your mixer out, or you can do a hand mixer, you can do a wooden spoon. I don't really recommend the wooden spoon method. I think a mixer is definitely, whether it's handheld or a stand mixer. So you're gonna take your 3/4 of a cup of your shortening and your cup of sugar. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna cream that together until it is very, very well incorporated. Okay, now that I've got my sugar and my shortening all creamed together, then you're gonna add your egg until that is well incorporated. I'll just turn that up just a slight bit. And then what you're gonna do, now I usually stop this just because molasses is really sticky. You're gonna pour all your molasses. Now, because it's a liquid, you should always use liquid measuring cups. Don't use your dry single measuring. Use a liquid form because it's a liquid. I don't know a lot of people if you know that or not. When you're measuring liquids out, you should always use a different a liquid measuring cup as opposed to something like this. So now that I've got my molasses in there, we're just gonna mix that in together. Now once that's all mixed together, then you're gonna start incorporating your flour mixture with all your spices, just little bits at a time, because you're really gonna wanna make sure that it's good and mixed in, because it's quite, it's gonna be a hard dough that you're gonna scoop out by the teaspoonsful and roll into sugar. I'm gonna turn this up a bit, and I'll be right back. So now that we have it all mixed in, then we're just gonna turn it to stir, and you're just gonna literally just put your mixer on low, and you're just gonna mix it in little by little. And then you're really gonna have to see it all come together where it makes kind of a nice, it's a stiffer dough rather than like chocolate chip cookie dough or any other kind of dough. And that's because of you're not using softened butter, you're using shortening. So, and you can stop your mixer at any time and sort of scrape down before you add more if it really starts running up the sides of your mixer. You should always scrape the bottom, or scrape your bowl anyway. that again, and then we can incorporate some more flour. Okay, so this is what your dough should look like. Kind of like, actually it's almost like plasticine really, but maybe a bit softer. Now, if you have one of these tools, I recommend using either this one or sort of the one up from that, or you can just use a simple teaspoon or a tablespoon. You're gonna want them about the consistency of, or sorry, not consistency, but about the shape or size of, I'm gonna say maybe a walnut. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna roll it around into just plain old white granulated sugar, and you leave them as a ball on your tray. You don't need to push them down or fork them the same way you do a peanut butter cookie, because what they're going to do is once you put them into the oven, they and you'll know when they're done is when they have a really nice crackle on the top. Now, if you want a bit of a spicier cookie, you can add an extra teaspoon of ginger. That'll really ramp up the, like if you're a big lover of ginger snaps, you can also cook them for the full 10 minutes or maybe even 10 and a half, depending on how crisp you like your ginger cookies. We like them, especially with a nice cup of tea, we like them a bit crispier on the outside, but very, very chewy on the inside. So it makes it such a nice sort of warm hug cookie because of the spice with a nice cup of tea. So I'm gonna finish rolling my dough, and we'll fill. You should probably get about, if I had to guess, probably about 20 cookies out of this one recipe, maybe 22, depending on how fat your rolls are. And then we'll come back. So I lied. I ended up with 30 cookies, not 20 or 22. It's been a while since I made them, so it's just a dreary day. I thought this would be a nice recipe to share. So I got 30 cookies out of my dough. And now what you're gonna do is you're gonna put these into a 325-degree oven for 8 to 10 minutes, depending on how, you gauge how hot your oven is based on other recipes that you've cooked. Okay, so they're out of the oven, nice and hot, and it smells, as Autumn says, it smells like Christmas. Well, that's the ginger and the cinnamon, of course. So this is how your cookies, now they'll be slightly domed until they rest a bit and cool down. I recommend a baking rack if you have one, so that way after about 5 minutes of cool down. But if you see, they're really nicely crackled, just on the outside. They're still a bit soft on the inside. Now, again, you can cook them longer if you want. I cooked them for about 9 minutes. This is about a 9-minute cook. And hopefully you'll try them. Let me know. Comment below. And thanks for watching another episode of the Qurentine Kitchen. See you next time.